A 10-ton universe-conquering god of destruction that rips its enemies limb from limb and eats their brains for breakfast. That is the myth. But reality? Reality is, I am currently staring at a 2-foot-tall, ridiculously jacked, squishy black puddle of a monster sitting obediently inside my plastic laundry basket. I made a massive mistake. I dropped $500 on a black meteor rock from the dark web because a sketchy fitness forum promised it was an unclassified alien super steroid. I wanted a shortcut to get shredded. Instead, the rock cracked wide open on my kitchen counter, and my brand new roommate stepped right out. He had the bulging black symbiote muscles, the massive white spider eyes, and a jaw packed with jagged, razor-sharp teeth. But he was only 2 feet tall. He puffed out his little black chest, bared his terrifying fangs, and lunged forward to roar right in my face. The sound that came out was a high-pitched, pathetic squeak. It sounded exactly like a dog's chew toy being stepped on. He froze in place, looking down at his own hands, completely confused and deeply embarrassed. I busted out laughing, knelt down to his eye level, and held out my fist. He blinked those massive eyes, tilted his heavy head, and gently bumped his squishy black fist against mine. It was freezing cold, but it felt like a promise. I took an old college hoodie, stuffed it inside an empty plastic tub of whey protein, and built him a little crib right next to my bed. I was officially a dad to a deadly alien parasite. I named him Vinny, and he completely idolized me. If I went out to the garage to lift heavy dumbbells, Vinny would waddle out there, grab 2 thick cans of Campbell's chicken noodle soup, and aggressively bench press them on the concrete right next to me. He wanted to be a gym bro so badly. The next morning, I found him standing in the bathtub, holding the toilet bowl brush with both hands, violently scrubbing his razor-sharp alien teeth until soap foam flew all over the bathroom tiles. He looked so incredibly proud of himself. He knew I drank energy drinks before my boring office shifts, so he wanted to help. I was sitting on the couch, and he stretched this inky black tendril all the way into the kitchen to grab me a can. But Vinny had absolutely zero muscle control. He pulled way too hard, and ripped the entire heavy stainless steel refrigerator door clean off its metal hinges. He dragged 100 pounds of shattered metal and spilled groceries across my living room floor, just to hand me a slightly dented can of Monster. I am watching $1,500 of kitchen appliances get completely totaled right before my very eyes. That is my entire apartment security deposit gone in a single microsecond. But then I looked down. He was holding the drink out with both hands, his massive white eyes squinting up in this goofy, incredibly proud smile. How do you yell at a face like that? You just pop the tab, take a sip, and tell him he is a good boy. His diet was a complete biological nightmare. He absolutely refused raw meat. His only viable fuel was frozen Ore-Ida tater tots, mixed with 2 scoops of Fruit Punch pre-workout powder, served right out of a plastic baby bottle. On the inside, he was incredibly fragile. During a massive summer thunderstorm, the lightning cracked loud, and Vinny shrieked in pure terror. He bolted into my bedroom, slithered directly under the covers, and flattened his entire body over my chest like a freezing, wet, 200-pound weighted blanket. He was shaking so hard the bed frame rattled. I just lay there in the pitch dark, patting his squishy alien head, reading classic comic books out loud, while he purred like a giant, terrifying diesel engine. By day 14, Vinny hit a biological growth spurt that completely defied all known laws of physics. He exploded into a towering 10-foot-tall, 800-pound behemoth. His broad shoulders literally scraped the popcorn ceiling of my cramped garage. His massive grocery bill was completely bankrupting me. We couldn't stay cooped up inside the duplex, so I started sneaking him out at 2 a.m. to clear out the local grocery store's entire freezer aisle. I am pushing a squeaky shopping cart completely overflowing with frozen potatoes, and Vinny is walking right behind me in the shadows. A giant, hulking alien bodyguard, trying his absolute best to tiptoe. But disaster struck in the dark parking lot. Some guy walking to his truck accidentally hit his panic button. The anti-theft car alarm started blaring a piercing, high-pitched siren. That is the exact moment I learned about Vinny's fatal biological weakness: sound. The high frequency hit his sensitive alien eardrums like a physical bullet. Vinny completely panicked. He clutched his massive head, let out an earth-shaking roar of pure agony, leaped blindly into the air, and landed with all 800 pounds of dense alien muscle directly on the roof of my brand new, leased Honda Civic. The suspension violently snapped with a deafening crack. The roof caved all the way down to the steering wheel. Every single window shattered outward like a bomb went off, and the entire steel frame buckled under his massive weight. He structurally annihilated it. I am standing there watching $40,000 of auto loan debt instantly transformed into an uninsurable metal taco. I am financially ruined. I had to pay for this completely destroyed car immediately, or my credit was permanently destroyed, and I was going to jail. There was only one single way to make that kind of extreme, life-changing money overnight. I had heard dark whispers at my gym about an illegal, underground, monster fight club down on the shipping docks called the Bio Brawl. The grand prize was $50,000 in untraceable cash. I looked down at Vinny, whimpering on the broken asphalt. We had absolutely no other choice.
All right.
Walking into that underground arena was like descending straight into a living nightmare. The suffocating smell of copper, ozone, and stale sweat hit me instantly. The bloodthirsty crowd was screaming, waving massive wads of dirty cash in the air. I walked Vinny up to the heavy steel cage. He looked incredibly confused, holding onto my arm tightly like a scared kid on his first day of school. The heavy bell rang, and Vinny stepped onto the blood-stained concrete. His very first opponent was a terrifying cyber rhino, plated in jagged titanium scrap metal. The rhino snorted aggressively and charged forward like a runaway freight train. Vinny, my sweet, naive gym bro alien, did exactly what I had taught him in the garage. He put his fists up and tried to throw a standard boxing jab. The heavily armored rhino didn't even blink. It hit Vinny at 40 miles an hour, launching all 800 pounds of my alien son directly into the steel chain link fence. The entire cage rattled violently. Vinny hit the hard floor, coughing up thick black ooze. I sprinted desperately to the edge of the wire, screaming at the top of my lungs. Vinny, what are you doing? You are an alien! Stop boxing and use your biology. Vinny shook his heavy head. He finally snapped out of it. He stood up tall as the mechanical rhino charged a second time. This time, Vinny crossed his massive black arms in front of his chest and completely liquefied his dense muscle tissue, turning his arms into a bouncy biological shield. The rhino hit him hard, but the massive kinetic energy absorbed right into the alien mass and bounced the heavy beast violently backward. Vinny morphed his large hands into razor-sharp claws, leaped high onto the beast's back, and ripped the heavy titanium armor clean off its metal spine. We won the first round, but the championship match was an absolute terrifying nightmare. We faced the undisputed underground king, a towering 16-foot-tall mutant alpha titan ape with heavy iron chains wrapped tightly around its massive forearms. The bell rang and the ape grabbed Vinny right by the throat, lifted him 10 feet in the air, and slammed him down into the concrete so hard, the massive shockwave knocked me right off my feet. The ape just kept ruthlessly pounding him. Brutal, bone-crushing, heavy hits. Vinny was getting absolutely destroyed. I completely panicked. I scrambled up the chain link fence, screaming at the top of my lungs, slamming my bare hands against the steel mesh. Leave him alone! Get off him! The giant ape paused and roared directly at me. Vinny saw that terrifying monster threatening his dad. something deep inside his alien brain just snapped. Pure, unadulterated, protective rage. Vinny let out a deafening roar that shook the building. His black muscles expanded to their absolute biological limit. He threw the heavy ape off his chest, stood up, and morphed his entire right arm into a massive, heavy, spiked black wrecking ball. He swung his hips, rotated his massive shoulder, and delivered an earth-shattering uppercut directly under the Titan ape's jaw. The 16-foot gorilla went entirely airborne and crashed down into the dirt, completely out cold. The crowd erupted into total madness. The shady promoter shoved a heavy metal briefcase containing $50,000 right into my shaking hands. Our crushing debts were finally paid. But our total freedom was a complete lie. The exact second my fingers closed securely around the handle of that briefcase, the roof of the warehouse violently exploded inward. Brilliant, blinding white military spotlights cut right through the thick smoke, pinning Vinny and me to the arena floor. The heavy, thumping rhythm of Black Hawk helicopters rattled my teeth in my skull. Dozens of heavily armored SWAT operators rappelled down thick ropes, completely surrounding the steel cage. They didn't bring guns, they brought heavy, military-grade sonic cannons. They pulled the triggers without any warning. A visible, distorted wave of air hit the cage. It was the most deafening, agonizing high frequency I had ever experienced. But to Vinny, it was absolutely lethal. He dropped to his knees instantly. He slammed his large hands over his non-existent ears, screaming loudly in pure, raw, unfiltered agony. The focused sonic wave was literally tearing his alien cellular structure completely apart. His massive, beautiful black muscles began splitting wide open, revealing glowing, raw red tissue underneath. He was actively dying, desperately trying to crawl toward me for safety. Ignoring the red laser sights painting my chest, ignoring the deafening noise, I sprinted straight into the absolute center of the military kill zone. I plunged my hand deep into my jacket pocket, ripped out a pair of giant, fluffy winter earmuffs. I desperately tried to stretch the fuzzy bands over the sides of his massive, thrashing head. "I got you, buddy. I am right here. Look at me." I was crying. I was just a clumsy, stupid dad, trying to put a small band-aid on a massive gunshot wound. The military commander realized I was entirely in the way of their prize. A heavy-lift drone hovered directly over the open cage and dropped a massive, unmanned sonic tank onto the arena floor. The heavy machine locked its targeting laser directly onto my chest. It began charging a maximum yield sonic pulse, explicitly designed to instantly vaporize the human host. The heavy cannon glowed bright blue. It fired! The blast was way too fast to dodge. I squeezed my eyes shut. But I didn't die, because Vinny didn't turn into liquid. He didn't run away. Using the absolute last ounce of strength in his failing alien body, Vinny grabbed me firmly by the jacket and violently threw me safely behind him. He planted his massive bare feet directly into the shattered concrete, digging his claws deep into the earth. He spread his long arms wide, and I watched in pure awe as the muscles in his back and chest rapidly hyperexpanded. He pushed every single ounce of his alien mass forward, turning his entire body into a solid, impenetrable, thick wall of dense black muscle. He took the lethal shockwave blast point blank directly to his chest to perfectly shield me. The sheer kinetic energy massively overloaded the sonic tank. It violently exploded, sending a massive, blinding fireball up into the night sky. The heavy shockwave knocked me backward, but I was completely untouched. Vinny dropped heavily to his knees. His thick black skin was smoking, charred, and severely burned. He collapsed forward, his massive chin resting heavily on the dirt, breathing in deep, ragged gasps. The thick smoke slowly began to clear. The military operators, absolutely terrified by the explosion and the sheer scale of the alien, pulled back into the shadows to regroup. I crawled over the rubble and fell to my knees right next to Vinny. I looked down at my hand. I was still gripping the metal handle of the briefcase. but the violent explosion had blown the case wide open. $50,000 in cash was completely shredded, burning away into worthless ash in the wind. The money was completely gone. But looking at Vinny's burned, rising and falling chest, it finally hit me. The profound, heartbreaking realization of my own complete selfishness. I took a cosmic god, a creature born to traverse the absolute limits of the stars, and I shoved him into a cramped suburban garage. I forced him to fight in a bloody cage just to pay off a stupid car loan I never should have signed. And despite all of my massive failures as a human being, he still gave me everything. He gave me his absolute loyalty, and he almost gave me his life. We are so utterly arrogant to think that the universe belongs inside our tiny rented duplexes. The human world is way too loud, way too greedy, and way too cruel for a soul this incredibly pure. Love isn't just about building cribs out of protein tubs or buying tater tots. Sometimes, the absolute deepest act of love is knowing exactly when you have to let go. I didn't wait for the military to come back. I loaded Vinny into the back of a stolen pickup truck and drove him deep into the quiet, isolated pine woods at the very edge of the state. Far away from the sirens, the alarms, and the crushing weight of modern life. The night air was freezing and completely silent. I threw the useless shredded briefcase down into a deep ravine. I set a massive box of frozen potatoes and his favorite plastic tub of fruit punch pre-workout on a large, flat boulder. Vinny slowly stood up. The profound quiet of the woods was already healing his cells. I walked right up to his massive chest. I reached up, my hand shaking, and gently touched his terrifying, beautiful face one last time. He leaned heavily into my palm. He slowly opened those massive white eyes, looked down at me, and let out that same soft, deep, rumbling purr from the night of the thunderstorm. He understood. He turned around. With heavy, determined, earth-shaking steps, he walked toward the massive pine trees. He reached up, grabbed a thick branch, and swung himself high up into the canopy, disappearing completely into the dark, quiet night. Finding a new path, where no alarms could ever hurt him again.